afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Josiah, and I will be your presenter for the day. Today, I will be presenting on Java Hibernate. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, Java Hibernate. Hibernate is a powerful open mapping framework that simplifies the process of interacting with databases in Java applications. Provides a layer of abstraction that allows developers to work with objects instead of directly writing SQL queries. So, we move on to the second slide. Everything in this first slide is actually straightforward. I guess everybody should understand what that means. So we move on to what does Hibernate actually do. Hibernate acts as a persistent layer handling mapping between Java objects and database table, which again is straightforward. It basically connects your code and allows you to map from your code to your database tables. Secondly, it provides a level of database independence, allowing applications to work with different database management systems without modifying the code. It also optimizes data access by caching frequently accessed data, reducing database queries, and improving application performance. We move on to the architecture of Hibernate, which you will see within the code, but the architecture includes core components, mapping configuration, and database interaction. Core components include session factory, session, transaction, and query interfaces, which work together to manage the persistence of Java objects. Mapping configuration, which defines the relationship between Java classes and database tables. It uses either XML or annotations. And then we have database interaction, which handles all low-level details of database interaction, such as connection management, transaction handling, and SQL generation, which frees the developer to focus on application logics. And we go over to Hibernate annotations. So we begin with at entity, which marks the Java class as a persistent entity representing a database table. At ID specifies the primary key property of an entity. At column defines a mapping between a class property, a property, and a database column. One to many, many to one defines the relationship between entities. So we go forward with the example, which as stated before, so we can see at entity is also listed there, at ID, column, and so forth. So these are basically, and it also states exactly what it's highlighting or exactly what it's specifying. As you can see, ID to table, column name, generated value, basically generates a value, and you see it generates a value for ID, which is the primary key, because we're using at ID to specify the primary key, and then we're using table to specify the table name. We go over to queries, and they're basically used in the Hibernate framework. So we have HQL, criteria API, native SQL. Now we go over to the actual code. So you can see the configuration basically sets out the URL used for the database, the user, and the password. Because we know when doing SQL, you need to create a username, you need to have a password, and so forth. So once that sets out the configuration and everything, and then shows different settings, and which was explained in architecture of Hibernate framework, because we actually stated session factory and so forth. Because you can see in code, in the code format, this is how it will actually look. And this is just the first part, which is the configuration part, and then you go down after you finish completing this, and then you will add in these other stuff. But you can also have these configured in a different file. So I'd actually add this information with actually being its own file, and then you could literally just import it to your code that you're trying to use to map back or specify back to your database. So as you can see, it has import org that Hibernate that session factory. Well, it's blue, but it's usually going to be a different color, but it's that way because I don't actually have this file. But as I'm saying, if you do this same configuration that you're seeing here and you do your configuration file, you save it, you are going to be able to specify or have that imported back over to your code. So this basically brings, in conclusion, we can come to a few conclusions that it's a simplified database interaction, it improves performance, and it enables for database independence, which in other terms that I would say it's easier to maintain, easier to use, simpler that you don't have to rely on SQL directly. You can just go through the Java interface, you can specify, you can map, you can do so much more. So it brings us to the end of the presentation. So thank you guys for being here. Once again, it was a privilege, and I hope that this has been informative and you guys do gain a bit more or learn a bit from this